Hey everyone, welcome back to the English Learning Podcast. I'm Jason, and I'm really happy you're here with us today. Let me start with a simple question. Have you ever looked at another person and thought, wow, they are doing so much better than me? Maybe they speak English more fluently, they have a better job, they seem more confident, or they are already achieving the things you are still working toward.
Oh, Jason, I think almost everyone has had that feeling at some point. Sometimes you can be having a perfectly good day. You feel proud of yourself. And then you open social media or talk to someone who seems more successful. And suddenly you start thinking, why am I not there yet? And just like that, you forget about all the progress you have already made.
Exactly. And that is what we're going to talk about today. How to stop comparing yourself to other people and start focusing on your own journey. If you often feel that you are too slow, not good enough, or falling behind because of what other people are doing, stay with us, because this conversation is especially for you.
So, take a deep breath, forget about everyone else for a few minutes, and let's talk about how you can become more confident by focusing on your own progress, your own journey, and your own goals.
Before we go deeper, Julia, let's explain what we actually mean when we say comparing yourself to others. In simple words, it means looking at another person's life, skills, appearance, success, or progress, and judging your own life based on what you see in that person. For example, you might look at someone who speaks English very well and think, their English is much better than mine, so I must not be good at English.
Yes, exactly. And comparison can happen in many different parts of our lives. You might compare your job with your friend's job, your house with your neighbor's house, your appearance with someone you see online, or even your progress with another English learner. Sometimes you don't even realize you are doing it because the comparison happens so quickly in your mind.
That's true. And there is something important we need to remember. Seeing someone who is ahead of you does not mean that you are behind in life. Maybe that person has been practicing for 5 years, while you started only 6 months ago. Maybe they had more opportunities, more free time, or more support than you did. You are looking at their results, but you may not know their whole story.
I love that point, Jason, because we often compare our behind the scenes with someone else's best moments. We see what they have achieved today, but we don't see the years of practice, mistakes, problems, and failures that came before that success.
Exactly. And once we understand that, we can start asking a much better question. Am I becoming better than the person I was yesterday? That is the kind of comparison that can actually help us grow. Julia, I actually remember a time when I was constantly comparing my progress with someone else's progress, and honestly, it made me feel much worse about myself. There was a person I knew who seemed to learn everything so quickly. They could speak confidently, they remembered new words easily, and whenever they made a mistake, they didn't seem embarrassed at all. I remember thinking, why can't I be like that? Maybe I'm just not good enough.
Oh, I completely understand that feeling, Jason, because I had something very similar happen to me. I remember practicing English and feeling really excited because I had learned some new words and could finally make longer sentences. But then I watched another English learner speaking much more confidently than me. And instead of feeling happy about my own progress, I immediately thought, I still have so much to learn. Maybe I'm not improving at all.
And that's the dangerous part, Julia. Nothing about our progress had actually changed. We were still learning, we were still practicing, and we were still getting better. But our feelings changed because we looked at someone else. It was like we had been walking forward and suddenly turned around to see how far someone else had walked.
Exactly. And I think many English learners experience this every day. Imagine you practice speaking for 30 minutes and you feel proud because yesterday you could only speak for 10 minutes. Then, you watch a fluent speaker online who speaks quickly and naturally. And suddenly, your 30 minutes of practice feels like nothing.
Yes, and that happened to me too. But eventually, I realized something important. I was comparing my beginning with someone else's middle, or even their advanced level. I didn't know how many years they had practiced, how many mistakes they had made, or how many times they had felt frustrated before becoming confident.
And once you understand that, comparison becomes much less powerful. Instead of saying, "Why am I not as good as them?" you can say, "What can I learn from them? And how can I become a little better than I was yesterday?"
That small change in thinking can completely change the way you see your own journey. So, Julia, if comparing ourselves with other people can make us feel unhappy, insecure, or even discouraged, why do we keep doing it? Why is our brain so interested in looking at what other people have and asking, do I have enough? Am I doing well enough?
That's a really good question, Jason. And I think one big reason is that we naturally want to understand where we stand. We look at other people because their lives can give us a kind of measurement. For example, if your friend gets a better job, you might start thinking about your own career. If someone buys a beautiful house, you might suddenly feel that your own home is not good enough. And if someone seems happier or more successful, you may start wondering if something is wrong with your own life.
Exactly. And social media can make this much stronger because we are constantly seeing other people's best moments. We see someone traveling, getting a new job, buying something expensive, looking confident, or celebrating an achievement. But we usually don't see the boring days, difficult moments, financial problems, mistakes, or disappointments behind those pictures and videos.
Yes, and sometimes we even compare things that cannot really be compared. Someone might have more money than you, but you might have more free time. Someone might speak English better than you, but you might be much better at another skill. Someone may look extremely confident online, but that does not mean they feel confident all the time in real life.
And English learning is a perfect example. You might hear someone speaking English smoothly and think, I wish I could speak like that. But you don't know how many years they have studied, how many conversations they have had, or how many mistakes they made before reaching that level.
Exactly. And sometimes comparison comes from wanting to be successful quickly. We see someone achieving something at 20, and we think, I should have achieved that by now. But life is not a race where everyone starts at the same place and reaches the finish line at the same time.
That's the key, Julia. We compare because we want to know whether we are doing well, but we often use the wrong people and the wrong measurements to judge ourselves. Instead of using someone else's life as our measuring stick, we need to learn how to measure our own progress. You know, Julia, I think the biggest problem with comparison is that it can slowly change the way we see ourselves. At first, it might seem harmless. You simply look at someone and think, they are doing really well. But if you keep doing it again and again, that simple thought can become, they are better than me. And eventually, you may start believing, I'm not good enough.
Yes, and that can really hurt your confidence. Imagine you are learning English and you make progress every week. Maybe 3 months ago, you could only introduce yourself with a few simple sentences. But today, you can have a 5-minute conversation. That is a huge improvement. But if you constantly compare yourself with someone who has been speaking English for 10 years, You may completely forget how far you have come.
Exactly. Comparison has a strange way of making your achievements look small. You can reach a goal you worked hard for, but instead of enjoying that moment, you immediately look at someone who has achieved something bigger and tell yourself, that's not enough. And when this happens again and again, you stop celebrating your progress.
And it can affect your happiness too. You might have a good job, supportive friends, a comfortable home, and many things to be thankful for. But after spending an hour looking at other people's lives online, you suddenly feel like your life is not exciting enough. Nothing actually changed in your life. Your attention simply moved from what you have to what you think you are missing.
That's such an important point. Comparison takes your attention away from your own life and puts it on someone else's life. And when your attention stays there for too long, you can become jealous, frustrated, anxious, or disappointed with yourself.
But there is another problem too. Constant comparison can make you afraid to try new things because you think, what if I'm not as good as everyone else? You might stop speaking English because you are afraid of making mistakes. Stop exercising because you don't look like someone online. Or stop working toward a dream because somebody else is already much more successful.
And that is why we need to remember this. Someone else's success is not proof of your failure. Their progress does not take away from yours. You can admire someone, learn from them, and still be proud of your own journey.
Exactly. Your goal is not to become someone else, Jason. Your goal is to become a stronger, happier, and more confident version of yourself.
Julia, I think this topic is especially important for English learners because language learning can make comparison feel almost impossible to avoid. You open YouTube and hear someone speaking perfect English. You listen to a podcast and hear someone speaking quickly and naturally. Or you meet another learner who seems to know thousands of words, and suddenly you start thinking, why can't I speak like that?
Oh, absolutely, Jason. And sometimes it can happen even when you are actually improving. Maybe you learned 20 new words this week, practiced speaking every day, and finally started making longer sentences without translating everything in your head. You should feel proud of yourself. But then you hear someone speaking fluently for 5 minutes without stopping, and suddenly you think, my English is terrible.
Exactly. But here is something every English learner needs to understand. You are not supposed to sound like someone who has been practicing for years when you have only been practicing for a few months. Learning a language takes time, and everyone develops different skills at different speeds.
That's so true. One learner might have excellent vocabulary but feel nervous when speaking. Another learner might speak confidently but still make grammar mistakes. Someone else might understand movies very well but struggle to have a conversation. So when you compare yourself with another learner, you are usually comparing different strengths and different weaknesses.
And there is another thing that people forget. Mistakes are not evidence that you are failing. If you say a sentence incorrectly today and then understand the correct sentence tomorrow, that mistake has actually helped you learn something. You cannot become fluent without making mistakes along the way.
Yes! And instead of saying, her English is better than mine, try asking yourself, what can I learn from her? Maybe you like the way she pronounces certain words. Maybe she uses useful expressions. Or maybe she speaks with confidence. You can learn from her without turning her success into a reason to feel bad about yourself.
Exactly. And I want every English learner listening right now to remember one simple rule. Don't compare your English with someone else's English. Compare today's English with yesterday's English.
If you can understand a little more, speak a little longer, remember a few more words, or feel a little more confident than you did before, then you are moving forward. And that progress matters, even if nobody else can see it.
Okay, Julia. We've talked about why comparison happens and how it can affect our confidence. But now, let's make this practical. What can we actually do when we notice ourselves comparing our lives, our English, our appearance, or our achievements with someone else's?
I think the first thing we need to do is change what we are comparing. Instead of constantly comparing yourself with other people, compare yourself with your past self. Ask yourself, what can I do today that I couldn't do 3 months ago? Maybe your English is not perfect yet, but perhaps you can understand more, speak more confidently, or have a longer conversation than before.
Exactly. And that leads us to our first mindset shift. Compare yourself with your past self, not with other people. Your past self is the fairest person to compare yourself with because you know where you started. You know what difficulties you faced, and you can actually see how much you have improved. If you are 1% better today than you were yesterday, that is still progress.
And our second mindset shift is to focus on progress instead of perfection. Sometimes we become frustrated because we expect ourselves to be perfect too quickly. An English learner might think, I still make grammar mistakes, so my English must be bad. But making mistakes does not mean you are failing. It means you are using the language and discovering what you need to improve.
Yes, and perfection can become a trap because you are always looking at what is missing instead of noticing what you already have. Imagine you learn 50 new words, but you focus only on the 10 words you forgot. You will feel disappointed even though you actually learned 40 new words successfully. So instead of asking, am I perfect? Ask, am I improving?
I love that question. And our third mindset shift is to use other people as inspiration, not competition. If you see someone who speaks beautiful English, instead of thinking, I will never speak like that, think, that is possible, and maybe I can learn something from this person. Their success can become a lesson instead of a threat.
Exactly. You can admire someone's pronunciation, vocabulary, confidence, discipline, or communication skills without believing that their success makes you less successful. You can say, I like what they are doing and I want to learn from them, instead of, they are better than me, so I am not good enough.
And finally, our fourth mindset shift is to remember that everyone has a different journey. This one sounds simple, but it is incredibly important. 2 people can start learning English on the same day and still improve at completely different speeds because they have different schedules, different opportunities, different experiences, and different reasons for learning.
Exactly. One person might have 2 hours every day to practice, while another person might have only 15 minutes after work. One person might live in an English-speaking environment, while another person might rarely hear English outside of a classroom or a podcast. So, comparing their results without knowing their circumstances is not fair.
And this applies to life in general, too. You might be 25 and still figuring out your career, while someone else is already successful. You might be learning a new skill while your friend has been practicing that skill for years. You might be starting over while someone else is reaching the finish line.
So let's make these 4 mindset shifts very simple. Compare yourself with your past self. Focus on progress instead of perfection. Use other people as inspiration instead of competition. And remember that everyone has a different journey.
And the next time you catch yourself thinking, why am I not like them? Stop for a moment and change the question to, what can I learn from them? And what can I do today to become a little better than I was yesterday?
That one question can turn comparison into motivation instead of frustration.
Exactly. You don't need to win someone else's race. You just need to keep moving forward on your own. Jason, can I tell you something? I've been feeling a little discouraged lately because I was watching some English learning videos and I saw a woman speaking English so naturally and confidently. She could speak quickly. She knew so many expressions, and she hardly made any mistakes. Then I started thinking about my own English, and honestly, I felt like I wasn't improving at all.
I understand, Julia. But let me ask you something. Do you remember how you spoke English 6 months ago?
Yes, actually. 6 months ago, I was afraid to speak for even 2 minutes because I was worried about making mistakes. But now, I can have much longer conversations, and I can explain my ideas more clearly.
Exactly. So, are you really not improving?
When you put it that way... No, I am improving. I think I just forgot about my own progress because I was looking at someone else's progress.
And that is the trap. You saw her final result, but you didn't see her beginning. You don't know how many years she practiced, how many mistakes she made, or how many times she felt nervous before becoming confident. So instead of saying, "She is better than me," try saying, "She has a skill that I would like to develop."
That actually feels much better. Instead of feeling jealous or disappointed, I can watch her videos and learn from her pronunciation, expressions, and confidence.
Exactly. And remember, Julia, you don't have to become her. You just have to become a better version of yourself.
You know what? I like that. From now on, when I feel like comparing myself with another English learner, I'll ask myself, am I better than I was yesterday?
And if the answer is yes, even a little bit, then you have a reason to be proud.
I agree. I think sometimes we are so busy looking at how far other people have gone that we forget to turn around and see how far we have already come.
All right, Julia. I think it's time to turn today's lesson into a speaking challenge for everyone listening. We've talked about comparison, confidence, and personal progress, but now I want our listeners to practice saying a few powerful sentences out loud. Don't just listen to them silently. Pause the podcast if you need more time. Take a deep breath and repeat each sentence with confidence.
Yes, and remember, you don't need to speak perfectly. The goal is to practice speaking clearly and confidently. So let's start with our first sentence. Listen carefully and repeat after me. I don't need to compare myself with other people because everyone has a different journey.
Great! Now let's make it a little longer. Instead of comparing myself with other people, I will focus on my own progress and become better than I was yesterday. Take your time and say it again, but this time, try to sound more confident.
Excellent! Now here's another sentence that I really want you to remember. Someone else's success does not mean that I am failing, because their journey is different from mine. This is a very useful sentence, so practice it slowly first, and then try saying it naturally without stopping.
And here is one more. I can admire other people, learn from them, and still be proud of my own progress. Notice how powerful that idea is. You can appreciate someone else's success without using it as a reason to feel bad about yourself.
Now, Jason, I think we should give our listeners one final challenge.
Absolutely. Everyone listening, complete this sentence using your own words. Today, I am proud of myself because... Maybe you learned 5 new English words, practiced speaking for 10 minutes, understood more of this podcast, or simply decided not to give up.
And don't worry if your answer is simple. Even saying, "Today I am proud of myself because I practiced English," is a great beginning.
Exactly. So speak your answer out loud right now, even if you are alone. This is your English practice. And more importantly, it is a reminder that your progress deserves to be noticed.
And remember, you don't have to be better than someone else today. You just need to keep moving forward.
Julia, I think the biggest lesson from today's conversation is that your life is not supposed to look exactly like someone else's life. And your English journey is not supposed to move at exactly the same speed as another learner's journey. You have your own starting point, your own challenges, your own opportunities, and your own reasons for moving forward.
Exactly, Jason. So if you ever feel like you are falling behind because someone else is achieving more, speaking better English, or reaching their goals faster, take a moment and remember how far you have already come. You may not be where you want to be yet, but that does not mean you are standing still.
And please remember this: someone else's progress does not make your progress smaller. You don't need to become better than everyone else. You simply need to keep learning, keep practicing, and keep becoming a little stronger and more confident than you were yesterday.
Your journey is yours, and that is something worth being proud of. So stop looking sideways, look forward, and keep going. Your next chapter is still being written.
Well, Julia, I think we can officially say goodbye to comparison for today. And remember, if you catch yourself comparing your English with someone else's tomorrow, don't be too hard on yourself. Just smile and say, "Wait a minute, I'm working on my own journey."
Exactly. And if today's conversation helped you feel a little more confident, don't keep that good feeling to yourself. Share this episode with a friend who might need to hear this message. And let us know in the comments one thing you are proud of improving recently.
And of course, if you're learning English with us, make sure to subscribe to the channel and come back for more simple, natural, and useful English conversations.
Keep practicing, keep speaking, and most importantly, keep believing in your own progress. We'll see you in the next episode.